Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us on President Biden's first trip to Oregon and Washington. I know you all got a background memo last night, but just a few points about this trip I wanted to highlight. The focus of the president's trip is fourfold. One, to underscore the historic economic growth and nearly 8 million jobs created as a result of his and congressional Democrats' actions, including the American Rescue Plan and the bipartisan infrastructure law, and his administration's work to lower costs for American families. Number two, to emphasize the bipartisan infrastructure law's historic $25 billion investments in airports, such as Portland International Airport, which is upgrading its south runway so that the runway can survive survive an earthquake. In 2022 alone, PDX will receive $20 million in funding from this program. Number three, to mark Earth Day by speaking to the need to bolster our nation's resilience in the face of threats like wildfire and the need to rapidly deploy clean energy. We will have more details on Earth Day announcements later this evening for you all. And finally, President Biden called on Congress to pass his plan to lower health care and energy costs. He has already taken important steps to lower costs, from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve release and the extension of E15 gasoline, to lower gas prices, to fixing the family glitch and enacting the rescue plan to save families that buy ACA coverage an average of $59 per person per month. But he has also laid out an ambitious plan to continue to build on that work and lower the cost of healthcare, including prescription drugs. And Congress should act on that to ensure lower premiums, close the Medicaid coverage cap cost sharing for insulin, and let Medicare negotiate the price of prescription drugs. In Portland today, the president will be joined by Governor Kate Brown, Senators Ron Wyden, Jeff Merkley, Representative Earl Blumenauer, Suzanne Bonamici, Peter DeFazio, and Kurt Schrader, and Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler. And in Seattle tomorrow, he will be joined by Governor Jay Inslee, Senators Pat Murray and Maria Cantwell, Congresswoman Kim Schreier, and other state and local elected officials. Today, as we get closer to the hot summer months, HHS is announcing more than $385 million to all 50 states, territories, and tribes to help families lower their home energy costs through the low income home energy assistance program, LIHEAP. Together with the billions provided in the American Rescue Plan, this brings the total funding for LIHEAP this year to over $8.3 billion, the most relief ever in the history of the program to lower out-of-pocket heating and cooling costs for hard-pressed American families. As you all know, we're headed to the Pacific Northwest, which experienced record heat last year. Extreme heat kills more Americans than any other weather-related event. Over the last 20 years, the frequency of extreme weather events, including extreme heat, has increased dramatically. Today's announcement builds on previous LIHEAP funding allocated through the American Rescue Plan, which more than doubled typical annual appropriations. Oregon will receive a record total of $92.6 million in LIHEAP funding, and Washington will receive a record total of $151 million. This month, President Biden has taken a number of actions to lower prices, including using executive action to fix the family glitch in the ACA. And he has taken action on student debt by freezing payments through August, providing immediate student debt cancellation for at least 40,000 borrowers, and helping another 3.6 million borrowers move closer to debt relief forgiveness. Okay, that was a lot. Thanks for listening through that, everybody. All right, Josh, what you got for me? Why don't you kick us off?
Thanks, Karine. Two subjects. First, Ukraine. The president talked about military aid today, but Ukraine says it needs $5 billion a month to support its government. Is the U.S. and its allies going to get Ukraine that money, and what would that look like?
This 500 million combined, the 500 million today that was announced, combined with the 500 million that President Biden announced in March, is targeted to meet Ukraine's most acute needs. We also continue to work with Congress to find ways to get more resources to Ukraine and bolster their ability to fight the war and restore its economy. The United States is also committed to working with other bilateral and multilateral donors. For example, the international community has provided and pledged considerable support exceeding $24 billion for 2022 and beyond. And this comes on the top of economic support provided since 2014 until 2021, which exceeds $60 billion.
And then, secondly, with regard to Florida, Governor DeSantis overstepped by penalizing Disney on Don't Say Gay.
Our view is that the Don't Say Gay bill is really crystal clear. It's wrong. That's our view. It is just wrong. We oppose the governor taking action against a company because their opposition to that bill, and we're just going to leave it there for now. We're not going to say any more to that.
Karine, a follow-up. Sorry, go ahead. Excuse me, Josh. The follow-up. Are you sure?
Sure, please. Yeah.
So nice to each other today.
Follow-up on Ukraine. The president said in his remarks this morning that he would be asking Congress for more money. Can you give us a sense of what dollar figure the administration will be asking for?
Anything in particular you're talking about? Just not this. Is it the security or the economic assistance?
All of the above.
All of the above. Okay. So, as the president just said today, as you mentioned, with this latest disbursement, we will have almost exhausted, as we're talking about the security assistance, almost exhausted the drawdown authority that Congress authorized for Ukraine in the bipartisan spending bill last month. We are committed to continuing to provide Ukraine with weapons and equipment that they are using so effectively to defend their country. Administration will be in touch with Congress, as the president mentioned in his speech next week, on additional resource requirements to keep weapons and ammunition flowing without interruption to Ukraine. So we appreciate the bipartisan support that we have seen in Congress. So we have received so far efforts to support Ukraine and hope that continues.
So you'll be putting in a formal ask next week, but can you give us a sense of what that dollar figure will be?
I don't have a dollar figure for you. I think the president was asked this question earlier, and he said that the Department of Defense is working on that right now, but I don't have a dollar figure to share with you at this time.
One other issue, Elon Musk has gotten funding for his attempt to buy Twitter. What is the White House's view right now on Musk and potential ownership of that by one person?
I'm not, that's something we're not going to comment on. The SEC is independent and would handle any review process moving forward, but we're not going to comment. That is a private investor. And so we're not going to comment on. I do want to add one more thing, because the funding information that I give you, Jeff, for the security component, but I just want to also give you the economic
Friendly side of that as well.
assistance to that too. So we just get that on the record. So as what remains there are some funds remaining as it relates to the economic assistance, and the administration is working to get those out of the door quickly. The administration will also be in touch with next week, as I just mentioned, on additional resource requirements to continue delivering economic assistance to the Ukrainian people. Just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Congress coming back next week. Obviously, a priority for the administration is pushing for a new COVID funding bill. Can you give us a sense of what you're doing on that? Is the ask still $10 billion, and is the administration open to joining that with the supplemental ask on Ukraine? Could it be the same funding bill?
As we have said time and time again, it's like we can't move forward with securing vaccine as we look at the fourth dose for all Americans. At this time last year, we were in the process of contracting for a booster campaign in the fall. Now we can't and risk not having adequate doses if needed. If experts decide we need different vaccines, including a variant-specific vaccine, we don't have the funding funding to secure them. So our testing capacity won't be able to support surge demand. Americans could once again face empty shelves, as we saw not too long ago. We can't buy any more treatments, including preventative treatments for the immune compromised. These treatments take 6 months to manufacture, so we're risk losing out that we intended to purchase. So we can't do more to invest in the next generation vaccines and treatments that will help us be prepared for future variants and provide more durable protection. And so we just want to be very clear. If we don't purchase these vaccines and therapies for the American people, other countries will step in to purchase them for their citizens. They already are. Without new support, we will quickly find ourselves at the back of the line for future vaccines, treatments, and tests. So this is something that we're going to continue to work with Congress on and push for that additional funding.
Have a view on whether it could be rolled into the supplemental as well? Could it be packaged in the same bill with Ukraine aid?
I have more to add. Clearly, as we said, that we need more for the economic assistance and security assistance I just laid out. I don't have anything more on how we're going to be packaging any of that. But
Part of the need is the fact that you owe $5 billion to Pfizer right now to complete your purchase of Paxlovid. That would chew up half the $10 billion. Is $10 billion still the ask, or is 22.5 still the ask? This is the USAID money. How much money are you seeking on COVID?
So are you asking about Paxlovid as well as it relates to the funding?
Courses of Paxlovid ordered right now. You've only paid for about 11 million of them. Now, is that order at risk of going under? If we want to talk about that, but more broadly, what's the total dollar asked?
It continues to be what we have discussed, which is 22.5 billion. That hasn't changed. But on Paxlovid, I'll give you an update. There's plenty of supply of Paxlovid available. We get more delivered each week, which we are quickly pushing out to places like pharmacies, hospitals, and urgent care centers, nursing homes, and community health centers. There are more than 17,000 locations across the country where people can get prescription filled. It's not yet ubiquitous like vaccines are, but we're getting there. We're working to make sure doctors and patients know about Paxlovid after it was authorized. It was in limited supply. That's not the case anymore. It's widely available, and the eligibility criteria are pretty expansive. So we're working to make sure providers and patients know that, and to make it easier to access. One way is through our new test to treat program. It's just about a month since the president announced this program, so we're already got 2,000 locations up and running. We're continuing to expand it, and our partners to improve patients' experience. We need funding to sustain this process, this progress, and are actively working beyond these actions to increase uptake.
The president finally was asked about Title 42 today, but he responded by talking about the mask thing. Can I ask the Title 42 question again? Is the administration open to delaying that in order to get a COVID funding deal?
Let me just kind of reiterate what the president said. We sent out a pool note to all of you from him, which is it says, I want to clarify that in comments at the conclusion of my remarks this morning, I was referring to the CDC's mask mandate, and there is no Department of Justice action on Title 42. And just also want to just reiterate what Jen Psaki said yesterday. The CDC made a determination that it can be lifted on May 23rd, and we're working hard to implement a plan to do that. She also noted that as we prepare for the implementation of the end of Title 42, there are a range of steps that we've been taking to prepare for that, including surging resources. That includes moving officer agents, DHS volunteer force personnel to rapidly decompress points along the border and more effectively process migrants. It also entails the deployment of COVID-19 mitigation efforts, including the continued use of PPE, providing the COVID-19 vaccines. It also includes expanding these efforts to cover migrants in CBP custody. So the point is there are a range of steps in this comprehensive plan that we have to be ready to go by May 23rd.
Is that a no? You won't consider extending Title 42 if that's what it takes to get COVID money?
I mean, extending Title 42 is not our decision. As Jen said yesterday, as we've been saying, that is Congress's decision to make.
No, go ahead. No, I just wanted to ask about the president's approach to masking. Does he still believe it should be an individual choice, even though the Department of Justice is appealing the federal judge's ruling?
A couple of things. I just want to lay this out because I think it's very important. So first, we've made a lot of progress on COVID, thanks to vaccines, boosters, and treatments. Severe cases of COVID and deaths are down 90% since the president entered office. Our economy is growing. Schools are open. People are getting back to work. We can feel much better about how things are today, but we know that this virus is tricky. It's a tricky virus. There can be new variants as we have seen. We have to be ready. So we all know that airplane and train travel are different than most places. You are stuck next to someone for a long time, as we are currently right now, but we have our masks on. And if that person is sick, if you are sick, you can spread the virus. And young kids can't get vaccinated. Kids under 5 years old, as we all know. People with weak immune systems aren't protected, and they need to travel safely. I know that masks are uncomfortable. We understand that, but masking on planes and trains is a way to protect yourself and others. So as the CDC recommends, the president thinks you should mask right now, especially as they learn more about BA2. The CDC should have the time and authority to make these decisions to protect the American people. We're in a much better place now on COVID, as I just listed out. But if things get worse or in the event of another public health crisis, CDC must have the essential public health authority now and in the future. And the principle that public health decisions should be made by public health authorities, that is what is at stake right now. And that's what the president stands with.
The U.S. military is sending specialized weapons that suit Ukraine's military needs. We are asking for hundreds of millions of dollars in military aid to send to the Ukrainians. The president is using active language to describe our involvement in this war. Walk softly and carry a big javelin, he said this morning. Is this a sign that Americans are going to continue to hear from him even on a week-by-week basis? Does this mean we're just going to continue to escalate our involvement in this war? And is this something Americans should just expect even on a weekly basis? Where is this going?
Let me say a couple of things there. The latest steps today that the president announced and talked about in his speech was to support the people of Ukraine, which is important as they're protecting their democracy. To hold Putin accountable for the brutal and bloody war. And I'm just very much reiterating what the president said today. Russia has launched a refocus campaign, as we have been talking about, to seize new territory in eastern Ukraine. And we are in a critical window that will set the stage for the next phase of this war, as you have heard us talk about. So, the U.S. and our allies and our partners are moving as fast as possible to make sure that Ukrainian forces have the weapons and equipment to defend their nation. And so that is what we're supporting, not just us alone, but with our partners and allies, as we see a strong Western force here. And so this is why Ukraine has been able to stop Russia from taking over their country. This is what we have seen, because we have come together to make sure to give them and what they need. And we're not sitting on the funding that Congress is providing for us providing for us to give to Ukraine. And so this is the announcement that he made today. And he was asked, the president was asked, how much longer can we do this for? And he said, we can sustain this. We can continue to do this. He said the most important thing is to make sure that we are continue to be aligned with our partners and allies. And so that is going to be the focus. And we're going to continue to help the Ukrainian people.
But Jake came out a couple weeks ago in the briefing room after the reports in Bucha and talked about the evidence gathering that would be required to declare Putin a war criminal and Russia culpable of war crimes. reports of widespread rapes and sexual violence have been cropping up about what's going on across Ukraine. Where is the evidence gathering? What's the status of that, and what's going on?
I don't have that. I don't have anything to provide to you right now. That's something that the State Department clearly has the authority and is handling that process. But as you've heard, the president has been very clear in calling it a war crime, and that is something that he believes. But we're going to leave that to the State Department to go through the legal process.
Great. Two questions for you. One, the president is going to Seattle later today, and then to talk tomorrow about climate and his agenda. What is the president, or what should Americans, Democrats, voters expect to hear from the president? He came into office with this expansive proposal to fight and combat climate change. That seems to have stalled in Congress. This is a big priority for many Democrats, as you outlined some of the announcements you're going to make. But on the whole, the president's climate agenda has really stalled in Congress and in the courts. And so I'm wondering what voters, Democrats, Americans should expect to hear from the president, given that the promises and the ambition that he showed running for president and then in the early months of his administration have largely not come to fruition.
So just tomorrow's Earth Day, so we'll provide more information on what tomorrow will look like and what the president will have to say. But look, the president is committed to doing everything he can to address, to reach his climate goals, and so he is committed and will continue to be committed. He has mobilized a whole of government effort in every sector of the economy. Sorry, Jeff. Taking executive actions that will reduce greenhouse gas emissions, accelerate clean energy production and deployment, and create good paying jobs that strengthen the economy. Today, and just in a little bit, he'll talk about the bipartisan infrastructure law, which is a big part of his, reaching his climate goals. But the administration approved the first large-scale projects identifying new and energy areas in the Atlantic and the Pacific, and holding a record-breaking $4.3 billion lease sale in the New York Bright, putting his major new industry on track to achieve the president's bold goal of deploying 30 gigawatts of offshore and wind by 2030, all while creating good-paying union jobs and down the supply chain. We fast-track clean energy projects to bring jobs and savings to communities by providing record levels of solar and other renewables on public lands, helping local governments advance community solar projects and rooftop installations, and launching a new initiative to deploy distributed energy resources in disadvantaged communities. President Biden rallied automakers and auto workers around an electric transportation future, setting a national target of 50% electric vehicle sales share in 2030, and spurring investments in new American factories to manufacture EVs and batteries and chargers. Last year, the administration also launched the EV Charging Action Plan to deploy $7.5 billion from the bipartisan infrastructure law, as I just mentioned, built out of a national charge network that is convenient, reliable, equitable through a new joint Office of Energy and Transportation. And we finalized the strongest passenger vehicle standards in American history to increase average fuel economy to 49 miles per gallon, reduce greenhouse gas emission, protect communities from pollution, and save drivers money at the pump. So the president has climate goals, wants to continue to fight for control. He's going to continue to do that. And he has used the power of his office to do that. So we're not going to stop at just what I just laid out.
I hear that. But at the same time, the administration has issued a waiver on E15, which environmentalists and climate groups are concerned will hamper those goals. The administration has opened up more leases for drilling in oil. And today, as John Kerry told my colleagues, that he doesn't see proof that nations are following through on their commitments to slow Earth's warming. So are there concerns or concessions from the White House that it has not done enough to meet the ambitious climate goals that the president has set out?
That is not what we believe. We are going to continue to meet our climate goals. I mean, look, you talked about E15. Look, the president is committed to doing everything that he can to address the pain Americans are feeling at the pump. You know, that was one of the reasons he made that announcement. You know, but our
Sorry, is that is trying to ensure that people don't feel pain at the pump? Is that in conflict with the president's climate goals?
Look, our strategy from day one has been to meet folks where they are. It's about delivering solutions to help people take on the real challenges of real life, addressing the emergency supply crunch while accelerating clean energy efforts is fully consistent the theory of the case and what we're trying to do. Believe we can walk and chew gum because families need to take their kids to school and go to work, get groceries, and go about their lives. And sometimes that requires gas today, this month, and this year. But at the very same time, we must speed up, not slow down our transition to clean energy. So we believe we're going to reach our goals. We are very committed to doing that.
On masks, does the Biden administration plan to ask for an emergency stay to immediately reimpose the mask mandate on public transit? Is that something you all are considering at this point?
I don't have JD at the end of my name. I'm not a legal strategist. I refer you to the DOJ. That is in their purview. But what I'll say is that the CDC believes masking is needed right, and DOJ is appealing accordingly. DOJ has a duty to preserve CDC's authority in the event of the current and future public health crisis. And this is a route that ensures we do both.
And then on Title 42, just to loop back to that, how is the administration going to help the smaller border towns who say they expect a large influx of immigrants crossing over the border if Title 42 is ended? What are they doing to help? Is that more agents? Is that more money? What is the plan for those towns?
As we've been talking about, DHS has a plan. DHS is implementing a comprehensive strategy to address potential increase in the number of border encounters. The strategy includes acquiring and deploying resources to address increased volumes that involves moving officers, agents, DHS volunteer force personnel to rapidly decompress points along the border and more efficiently process migrants. It also entails the deployment of COVID-19 mitigation efforts, including the continued use of PPE and providing the COVID-19 vaccines to non-citizens in ICE custody since summer of 2021. Beginning March 28, 2022, DHS expanded those efforts to cover migrants in CBP custody so as to further safeguard public health and ensure the safety of border communities, the workforce, and migrants. And so that is what DHS has, a comprehensive plan, and they'll be executing that. They have.
Last one for me. I'm sorry if this is repetitive. It's hard to hear on the plane. But in terms of Ukraine, as it looks more likely that the war is going to be going on for quite some time, is there talk of more complex systems like Patriot missiles that would take longer to train up but could have a bigger effect on protecting Ukraine and the airspace?
Specific materials that you just mentioned, I would refer you to the Department of Defense. I don't have anything here to preview on that.
I just had another one. Increasingly, we're seeing attacks from Republicans directed at Democrats, allegations of grooming or around LGBTQ issues. There was that speech that went viral from a Democrat state lawmaker in Michigan that rebutted some attacks against her of allegations of grooming. From the White House's perspective, these attacks that we're seeing from Republicans, allegations unsubstantiated against Democrats. Does the president plan to call out these attacks? Is this something that the White House is aware of, concerned about? Any comment that you might have on the increasing allegations that we've seen?
Like the attacks on the LGBTQ community in particular, or
but also broader on Democrats and allegations, again, unsubstantiated about grooming and things of that nature. As we saw, I don't know if you saw the video of the Michigan.
Actually, I heard of the video, but I have not watched it in its entirety. I've only seen clips of it. Look, the president has stood with the LGBTQ community and supporting them and seeing them, that community. Clearly, any attacks or that we are seeing, I was just asked about what Governor DeSantis is doing in Florida with Disney. And so we think that type of behavior is wrong. And so we've been very clear about that at the podium. We've been very clear about that anytime you all ask us. I not had a conversation with the president, or we haven't about if he is, what if he's going to say anything himself. But he has put out, at least, behind a podium or at, at a mic. But we have put out statements in his voice when it comes to attacks that we have seen in that community specifically. So we've been very clear on that.
Just to follow up on Tyler's question, the point is not necessarily attacks against the LGBT community. It's rather Republicans accusing Democrats of being sexual predators and making that a broad strategy as an attack on the other party.
Look, I asked if it was about the LGBT community. He said yes, but I hear your question. Look, it's what the Republicans are doing is unfortunate. Instead of talking about the issues that's going on currently right now, what the pain the American families are feeling, and coming to the table and having a real discussion on how to make Americans' lives better. They want to have a culture war, and that is unfortunate to see. We're going to be steadfast and focus on what's at hand. Today we're going to be in Portland, as you all know. Talk about the bipartisan infrastructure law, which, by the way, as you all know, Republicans in Congress were able to come together with Democrats, and we got something done, something that was historic, something that's going to change the lives of American people, something that's going to create jobs, that's going to rebuild our infrastructure, deal with supply chain as we're trying to deal with this once in a generation a pandemic. That's what we want to see. That's what the president was elected to do, is to bring people together and get things done. And that's what we're going to talk about today, and that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow in Seattle.
President Biden, in New Hampshire and in Iowa, and perhaps today, has put his foot forward on the deficit a lot. He's talking a lot more about the deficit, including touting his proposal as an immediate deficit cutting measure. I wonder if you can talk about that shift. BBB used to talk about it cutting the deficit in the long term. Now he talks about it in the short term. Seems to be an olive branch to Senator Manchin. How big a priority is immediate deficit reduction for President Biden? And because Manchin has talked about a bill that is sort of half deficit reduction. In other words, half only half the new revenue would be spent, and therefore the deficit would be immediately driven down. Is that something he would support?
As we've been saying for the past several months, we're just not going to negotiate in public. Clearly, this is when we think about Build Back Better, we think about building back a better America. That is something that's important to the president, and so we're going to continue to work towards that and continue to talk to folks on Congress. But I don't have any specific details to share.
He's kind of negotiating in public, though, a little bit by telling Senator Manchin that he's open to it, isn't it?
I right here on this plane, I don't have anything to share, any specifics.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Can I just one more, Karine, as we go? Sorry, quick one. Does the president still have confidence that Mayor Garcetti has the support in Congress, in the Senate, to be confirmed as ambassador to India?
He has confidence in Mayor Garcetti to move forward. All right, thank you.
Great, thanks, Karine.
Thanks.